Another part of the statistical process is sampling. We know already that it's not really feasible to collect information on a large population, so instead what we do is we collect a sample from that larger population. And when we think about obtaining information or collecting this sample, we want to make sure that the information that we're collecting is going to give us as much information about the population as we can for the least amount of cost and maybe the least amount of time. So for that reason, we use a sampling process. Most importantly, we want to let chance or randomness play a key role in how we go about selecting our sample. And it's in that randomness or chance that we would rather have as opposed to looking at some sort of convenience. So random sampling is the process of using chance to select that individual or those individuals from the population, and that's how we go about creating our sample. And like I said, we want to let randomness or chance be the key driver of this as opposed to convenience. Convenience is just that. It's convenient to be able to collect information for our sample, but sometimes if you use convenience to collect information, your survey can be called into question. So there's 4 types of sampling methods that we're going to look at, and the first one that we want to consider is called simple random sampling. Simple random sampling is the most basic form of sampling. It's similar to where if I just took names from, let's say, the classroom, I put everybody's name in a hat, shook the hat up, and drew names out of the hat. That is simple random sampling. We have allowed chance to play a key role in that. If I just put everybody's name in, shake it up without doing anything special, we didn't fold the paper, we didn't do anything special to the paper that has the names on it, and I just randomly let people draw a name out of that hat, every name in the hat is equally likely to be chosen. Now, according to our guidelines over here for this simple random sample, we're supposed to obtain a frame. And the frame is really just a list of those individuals. So for example, here on my screen, if my population is given here, and you can see that I have 9 people in the population, the frame would be those numbers 1 through 9. So if I had a list of names, let's say for our class, and I numbered those names from, like I put them in alphabetical order, I numbered them from 1 to, 25, that's going to be considered the frame. And from the frame, we randomly choose however many numbers I need for my sample. I would randomly generate or choose numbers to create the sample size. So you can see here that we are randomly choosing the numbers 2, 5, and 9, and those are the people then that would be chosen for this sample. Now, one thing to consider is that here we're it's stating that we're using either a table, a random number table, we don't use those anymore really, a graphing calculator, statistical software in order to generate the sample size. And the reason we do that is because, remember, we're trying to let chance play the major role here. And if we just left picking numbers up to us individually, there might be some bias in that. Like if I had to pick, say, 3 numbers from 1 to 9, maybe I have a set of numbers that I like better. Maybe I'm going to pick odd numbers, or maybe I'm going to pick numbers in a certain pattern. Or maybe I'm going to pick numbers that mean something to me, like my children's birthday. So in order to truly have randomness, when we are picking a simple random sample, we usually let technology handle that for us. And the last thing that I want to highlight to you here on this screen is this lowercase n is going to be the first variable that we're discussing in the course that we're identifying. So from here on out, I'm going to let lowercase n be representing my sample size. So make sure that you start a list of all the variables we're using in the course, the first one being that n is is our sample size. So let's take a look at what an example would look like when we are creating or using a simple random sample to create a sample. Here you see we have an example that says the Future Government Club wants to sponsor a panel discussion on the upcoming national election. The club wants 4 of its members to lead the panel discussion. We want to obtain a simple random sample of size 4 from the table. This is an example of a problem shown in your homework, so we're going to go through some of the steps together here. So here is the question again, and some of the things I want to highlight to you. Let's start with this image right here. So when I click this image from within the homework problem, it's going to pull up a pop-up screen that lists the government club sponsors. So here are all the people in the government club, and I need to randomly pull 4 names out of this hat. How do I do that? Using StatCrunch. When you get a pop-up window like this little icon right here in the right-hand side tells me to do something. I'm going to click on that, and it tells me I'd like to open up, these are the options, but I want to open this up in StatCrunch. So when I do open it in StatCrunch, we open a new window, and let me reframe my window so you can see it. Here is the window that we're interested in. It's my StatCrunch window, and you'll notice that this list of all these 32 people is now showing up directly in StatCrunch right here in a single column. So I could scroll down here and you'll see all 32 people are listed here. So that is a key feature here in your homework that allows you to take something from a table and automatically input it into your StatCrunch software so you don't have to retype anything and no chance for making mistakes. So let's move on now to how do I go about creating a sample or randomly pulling 4 names from within this list. In order to do that, you're going to go here to Data, Simulate, Discrete Uniform. And you should see this other pop-up window here, which is now we're gonna fill in some information. So I'm being asked to create a sample of size 4, but I don't want to just choose 4 numbers here. I want to choose more than 4. I'm going to choose 10 in case the numbers that are generated randomly repeat. I only have 1 column I'm pulling this from. So the row here represents my padded sample, if you will, 1 column. And then the parameters are coming from the number, the list right here that I am going to draw numbers out of. Now we had 32 people in this list. So the smallest number I would be able to draw is a 1, and the largest number I would be able to draw is a 32. And because we're doing this in a homework problem, so let's move back to the homework problem quickly. There's one extra thing I need to put on there. You'll see here it says seed. So the seed is going to automatically make it to where everybody who sees this homework problem is going to generate the exact same 10 numbers that you need in order to get the problem right. So we'll go back to our pop-up. Oops. We want to do seed 12657. So down here, instead of choosing a dynamic seed, I'm going to use a fixed seed, 12657, in order to answer this question from the homework correctly. When I hit compute, it put that information in a column here, and now I can see that, let me make sure I got that number right, 12657. And now you can see that my numbers 5, 11, 6, and 28 correspond with the names over here on the left. So for number 5, that corresponds to Cooper. For number 11, it corresponds to Hydra. Notice here that there are 2 6s that showed up. We're going to ignore the second 6 and only choose the first one. This is how come we put extra numbers in here. So for number 6 would be Diebold, and then the next number that I would choose for this list at 28 is all the way down here at the bottom for Thompson. Now, the fixed seed is what we're going to use to answer a homework question. If, however, I wanted to go back and regenerate a list of names one more time, 1 to 32, but this time I choose the dynamic seed. I leave it as dynamic seed. It generated another set of numbers for me here. So randomly pulled 10 more numbers here. And if you were to have been doing this along with me, or even if you do it now, you'll find that your randomly generated 10 numbers should be different from these that I have just generated. And that's because we are not specifying, using that fixed seed, what we want the answer to be. So this is how we're going to use technology to be able to answer our simple random sample questions in the homework.